For the first time in 12 days, it's Nashville Predators game day. Preds take on the Golden Knights, and we got your game preview. A look ahead at February's tough but also kind of easy schedule and the biggest storylines we're watching for the Preds in the second half of the season. All coming up today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast that's available to you wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
Also, before we get any further, I want to mention today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On Predators. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon today to get started. And we back.
We back, baby.
First time in 12 days, we have Nashville Predators hockey to talk about. And given that the Predators have had a kind of a rough history of coming off long game breaks, should be an interesting one tonight at Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, I woke up this morning and I was like, first of all, we get to see the guys again, so excited to see the team play. But also, I don't know how I feel about it because like you said, let's just be real. The Nashville Predators coming off of the All Star break is not necessarily the hockey that you've waited, 12 days to watch in the past. But this Nashville Predators team, is coming off of a 12-day break where prior to that, they played 3 of their best hockey games that I think that we've seen most all season. Mm-hmm. So it's like my hopes are high, but then I'm like, temper it, Ann. You do not want to be just sitting there in your disappointment, being disappointed. But I don't know how to feel about this game. It does not help that the game is against Vegas because I think at this point in the season, I'm not real sure what's going on with them either.
Yeah, they were maybe about this point around Christmas. You could kind of consider them maybe the best team in the Western Conference, up there battling Boston for maybe the best team in the league. And then the same thing that happened last year. The injuries popped up, and they kind of went into a free fall.
They were dropping like flies.
I think 2-6-2 over their last 10 games before the All-Star break. They just lost Mark Stone for at least a couple of months.
Yep, he just had surgery.
Yeah, due to surgery. Jack Eichel and Alex Pietrangelo were both injured, and both of them have been a little bit slow to get back on their horse. And they're also missing Zach Whitecloud, who is, one like a very reliable top 4 defensive defenseman. And because of the way Vegas is built, we know their famous cap troubles. We know their, penchant for basically mortgaging any sort of futures they have into winning now. The depth is just not quite there. And so, when you get into a situation like you do now, you kind of leave yourself screwed if more than 1 or 2 people start going down with injury.
Yeah, and they were in a world of hurt. They just could not. I mean, between the injuries and then, bringing in some people, the performance on ice lately has just kind of slipped. And like you said, this is something that we've sort of seen from Vegas before. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Vegas team does, if they can work out of that, or if this is just sort of a forecast of things to come for them. So tonight not only is a big game for us, but it's also a big game for Vegas because they've got to shake some of this off and get back to their winning ways because they're coming in. It's looking rough. They're looking a little haggard.
Yeah. Is first line winger Paul Cotter going to be enough to steer Vegas into the right direction?
Yeah, it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing.
Yeah, Paul Cotter, same amount of points this season as Cole Smith, and he's on the first line. So let's let that point marinate for a second.
Let's
go back to the Nashville Predators. Let's, instead of burying another team, let's bury our team, Anna.
Come on.
It's going to be interesting to see how they respond, and if that message carries over from the All-Star break. We talked about it a lot before. The closed door locker room meeting was a raw, honest, and probably a lot of egos were put in check a little bit. The Preds responded with 3 of their best games of the season. Is that going to carry over, or did the all the Mai Tais in Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, wherever they were, are those going to make their memories a little bit foggy? And are they going to go back to the team that we saw kind of go through the motions at times during games? Which team is going to show up? The answer to that question may determine whether we're talking playoffs in a month or 2 or not, because this is the time right now in which the Predators need to start stockpiling the points.
Yes, they do. And I think this is a very tricky situation, because what the Predators have to bring back with them is not even necessarily on ice execution. Of course, that's going to be a byproduct of it. But what they have to bring back after this break is that fire that we saw from them. It wasn't, yes, on ice execution was improved in those last 3 wins, but that was a byproduct of that team getting their heads in the right space. That was a byproduct of the team, like you said, kind of checking egos and being honest and holding each other accountable and wanting to do the best for each other. If they can bring that emotional space back, I think the on-ice product will take care of itself like it did in those last 3 games. I'm really hopeful that they can do it. I know before the break, in talking with some of the players, they were just really honest about it. Like, it's hard to interrupt the place that we're at, but we're all kind of tired. It's been a haul, God bless Matt Duchene. He's like, look, I got a new baby. Like, I'm tired. But I know that they were looking forward to the physical aspect of the break, but they really still, in talking about it, you could tell that this was a team that had that fire in them. And, John Hines said in passing, the coaches are going to work over this break on some things that we can do that really kind of pops that back into place, and that brings this team right back to a place where they can kind of launch, from that good spot into this Vegas game tonight. So here's hoping that they all come back with, fresh perspective and a little more energy, but still that same commitment, because that's what they're going to need. Like we've said, Vegas has had some ups and downs, but this is a team that, like you said, they were one of the top teams in the league for quite a while there. So there are no easy games. Nashville has set themselves up for a second half of a season where there are no gimme games. Despite what the schedule may look like, they've got to win all these. They're not going to win all of these games, but they could try.
You heard it here from Ann first. Preds are going undefeated the rest of the season.
I said it here first. Come on.
Yeah. Anybody who has ever worked and has gone on a week-long vacation or an extended vacation, there's 2 moods you had when you come back from vacation. One is you're refreshed, you're motivated, you got some new ideas, you're ready to try some new things out that you thought about. And the other is you get back and you realize how much you actually hate your life. What are the Preds going to be? Are they going to be refreshed, recharged? Are they going to come into this with, a brand new motivated perspective? Or is it going to be back to the old habits and they wait until the inevitable roster shuffle happens this offseason? Because if you look at Alex Doherty's thread on the salary cap,
Hello.
No matter what happens this year, some significant roster changes are coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
Just
They
because
are.
they have to. Yeah.
Yeah, money. Stinking money. Yeah. The Predators are going to look very different. And I'm curious as to whether they're going to look different before the trade deadline or if we're going to make it through the season and then it looks different. But yeah.
Well, hey,
changes are coming, friends.
maybe that's something to watch in our second half storyline segment.
There you go.
Big stories to watch going into the second half of the year, plus a look at the February schedule, which has some tough teams, but maybe your easiest one for the rest of the year. We'll talk about whether that's going to be a trap for the Nashville Predators or not. But first, want to mention today's episode is brought to you by our new betting partner for the Locked On Predators podcast, and that's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And what's happening this weekend of note in the sports world?
I'm making my giant cheese ball. And there's a Super Bowl.
Okay, yeah. That's the cheese ball is not anywhere on the FanDuel sports betting logs. But there's plenty from Super Bowl 57. And if you download FanDuel now, you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown, and a plenty of prop bets as well. Will the opening kickoff of the second half be returned for a touchdown? Will there be a field goal blocked in return for a touchdown? Will Patrick Mahomes, who will his first pass be thrown to? Plenty of different bets, so there's something for everybody. And it's all on a FanDuel Sportsbook app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And best of all, if you win, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, and Predators take on the Vegas Golden Knights tonight at Bridgestone Arena, 7 o'clock Central puck drop. Kicks off an interesting slate of February games. So we have Vegas tonight, and then 3 more days off, which I'm not really sure how that's going to go, and then a day game at Philly, and then it kind of gets interesting from there.
It does. And you look at this schedule, you look at February, and I'm like, it is brewing with potential, my friends. But then you look closer and you're like, and also a little bit of doom because, Vegas tonight, Philly, you said a day game, which you never know how day games are going to go. Next week, they have 3 home games: Arizona, Boston, and Florida. And Florida last night beat Tampa Bay. Did I see this correctly? 7-1? Oh my goodness.
All Star MVP Matthew Tkachuk, fresh off driving his new car to the arena. That's all it took.
I was gonna say, you give a guy a Honda and look what happens.
There's your lesson, kids.
There it is. It's like you give a mouse a cookie was a great children's book for adult hockey players. You give a guy a Honda and look what happens.
If you give a douchebag a Honda.
Okay, that's in the young adult section of the library. That's not in the children's section. But so they're facing Boston. I think that's the game when you just glance at the schedule, you zoom in on like, okay, how in the world are the Nashville Predators going to compete against Boston? Boston is absolutely redonkulous this season.
Chance to break the all-time best single season record that was just broken a couple years ago by Tampa Bay. They're on pace to do that. So maybe historically good.
Yes. So, that is definitely going to be one of the bigger challenges for the month of February for the Predators. But then, you look and they've got Arizona twice. Now, why does that matter? Oh, look, it's 4 free points, ladies and gentlemen. Is it really, though? Let's take a minute and flash back to the absolute hideousness that was the end of last season, where all the Predators needed to do was beat Arizona and they would face Calgary in the playoffs, and were up 4-0 in dominating fashion and then lost that game. So there are, San Jose, Vancouver. They do play Minnesota and Pittsburgh. I don't know how you feel. How do you feel about the Minnesota game?
Well, I mean, but here's the thing about that. That's the second of a back-to-back.
Yes.
And it's the Preds play at home Saturday afternoon against Florida and then go to Minnesota for a Sunday afternoon game. So it's, the way it's built, you can look at this. There's two ways to look at this. You can look at it and you can see the abundance of teams like Arizona. There's also a home game against Vancouver, and Vancouver is tanking hard right now. Like we mentioned, Philadelphia is this weekend, and they're also, have been towards the bottom of the standings this year. Even, they're catching Vegas at a time when Vegas is kind of in a big slump. So you look at this and you can say, oh, this is going to be an opportunity. The Preds need to stockpile points, and it definitely is. They are going to play some not very good teams with a decent amount of rest in between them, other than that back-to-back we just mentioned. But at the same time, is this an opportunity for the Preds to kind of look ahead, take their foot off the gas, play down to their competition, which is a big issue we have seen with this core over the past 5 years, is they'll look at a favorable schedule and, kind of put it in, cruise control and sit back with their feet on the dash, like how Homer Simpson thinks cruise control works and winds up crashing into a salt barn.
Yes.
That's kind of the danger of this quote unquote favorable schedule for the Nashville Predators.
Right. And the timing of this quote unquote favorable schedule with the landmine that you're talking about could be it could change the rest of the season for the Nashville Predators, not just playoff wise, but I'm talking roster wise, because you have to remember what happens in February is really going to swing, I think, what David Poile does or doesn't do at the trade deadline. I don't know that David Poile is really quickly going to make a move right now, because I think the Predators are still sifting out, look, where are we? Where are we? And are we close enough that at the trade deadline, I go get some pieces? Or is this team going to end up February 28th after that home game against Pittsburgh that, oh, for the love of all of my family reunions, I need them to win? Is David Poile going to say, look, I've seen enough and I'm going to get what I can get for some big pieces? So this February, it's about points. It's about building momentum for this team. But they can't look ahead. But yet also, hey, there's this overhanging cloud of what's going to happen at the trade deadline. This month is going to decide, because so far, who knows? Who knows what this team is going to do or not do, need or not need at the trade deadline?
Yeah. And that is kind of, for me, one of my biggest storylines to watch is there going to be an expiration date? Like, is there going to be a deadline date for David Poile in all of this? Is he going to, because the deadline is March 3rd. So like you said, you really only have this month. And then I think it's one game. One game on the 2nd at Florida. So you really only have, 10 more games to kind of determine, what do I need to do? Like, what's the best move? Is this team really turning in the right direction? And that's the big question, Anne, because it's kind of been a tale of two teams this year. You look where there have been some bad stretches, but you look since the start of December at kind of the whole and, take a step back and look at it over the past 2 months, and the Predators, the amount of the rate at which they've earned points in December and January over the course of a 82 game season would put them at like 108, 110 points.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
means they're not only a playoff team, they're up there for one of the top teams in the NHL.
Yeah.
So is there an expiration point for determining what is this version of the Nashville Predators? And
Yeah.
I think that is why this February schedule is so important, because it seems like that trade deadline is going to be the deadline to determine what direction David Poile is going to take this team. And like you said, I don't know if he is going to make any big swings at the deadline, especially when it comes to bringing somebody in or trading somebody like, let's say, Matthias Ekholm or something like that. But, Dante Fabro is a free agent, and you're probably not going to resign him.
Yeah.
Is he in a market in which defensemen are an absolute premium right now? I mean, there's people talking about Gavrikov on Columbus getting first round pick. You can do that well for Dante Fabro if you want.
Yeah.
Are you going to get a first round draft pick for him? If you put him on the market, you may set this year's team back, but you're getting good futures. Alexander Carrier, another guy that might be difficult to resign this year. I mean, it might be him or Fabro.
Right.
But there's that. There's Tanner Jeannot, who's a restricted free agent, is going to be due a big raise and get a big qualifying offer again that you might not either want or be able to afford to pay. So there are all these questions. It's like, look, do I go now, and is somebody going to blow me off my feet for an offer for these guys that, if they're not in the lineup, might hurt our chances towards the playoff this year?
Right.
Or do I need to get started? Do I need to make some moves ahead of this summer that might jumpstart? And who knows? Hey, if they get an extra first round pick for Dante Fabro,
very tempting.
Even if it's like late first round, all of a sudden you have an extra first round pick, and you may be able to trade for a player, like use that to get a package for like a player that maybe changes the shape of your direction going forward.
Yeah. There are so many things that are going to hinge on this February schedule. And, that's a lot of pressure on the Nashville Predators, but that's just the way the season's unfolded. And you can bet that David Poile is going to be watching every second of hockey between now and March 3rd and making those, and they're not going to be easy choices. So, and that's definitely what happens after the trade deadline is definitely going to be a big storyline for the second half of the season. But there are more storylines that we're going to talk about coming up in just a second here. First, want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by our great friends at Athletic Greens. Nick and I have talked about it. We first started taking AG1 when they sent us a free box. And I'm going to be honest, I was super interested in this. I have been down the road where I would take all kinds of pills and supplements every morning. But AG1 appealed to me because it was so much easier. Athletic Greens has created a product that gives you all of the health benefits of those handful of pills and supplements, but they made it easy. And most importantly to me, they made it taste great. So what is AG1? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports everything from gut health to nervous system, immune system, your energy, recovery, and focus. AG1 is just a small daily micro habit that provides big benefits. It's just one thing you can do every single day to help take great care of yourself. And it costs less than $3 a day. So you're investing in your health. And friends, it's cheaper than that little drive-through coffee habit we all know you have. It's also way cheaper, I can tell you, than going out and buying all of these supplements and these pills and minerals and vitamins. So much easier and cheaper than doing that yourself. So to make it easy for you, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune boosting vitamin D, and they're going to send you 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
All right, so we talked about the Predators and their trade deadline, and maybe these last couple weeks are before the deadline are going to be a big caveat of what the Predators are going to do at that deadline. Let's say the Predators do turn things around, and they are in a playoff spot, or at least like kind of on that bubble. What moves do you think Poile might make, if any, to kind of accelerate his playoff chances?
Wow, great question. I think some of that will depend on how quickly Carrier gets back, which we're kind of hearing it may be more towards the 4 weeks than the 6 weeks that we were told. So if Carrier is back, I think you're going to see the defense kind of stay relatively pat. I will say keep an eye on Dante Fabro, because I do think that that is a piece that, regardless of where the Predators are, that's a piece that may move whether the Predators are in or out. I think that's one of the good pieces that Poile kind of has. I don't know how much they really do. I don't see him going out and swinging for the fences, because Poile has traditionally been the dance with the girl you took kind of guy. And I think with this team, some of the players that are standing out right now, for me, Cody Glass is a huge story of this season for the Nashville Predators. Not been linear. His season has not been linear, but he is going right. He's trending right where you want him to be. You've got Juuso Parssinen. You've got Tommy Novak. I really wonder if David Poile isn't going to want to maybe see those guys, if the team is trending well, under the pressure is not the right word, but in the situation of we're in the hunt for the playoffs. What is that going to do to your game? Can you take that next step in your game in a situation where this team is going to need you to perform your best? So I don't see Poile doing a lot. I do see him watching specific players to see kind of how they do in that situation, especially these young guys. I don't see Poile going out and trying to get a big fish.
No, absolutely not. Or at least like a top one or one he has to explore. I don't know. Maybe, if it depends on if David Poile really thinks the Predators can like make a run with this version, or if he sees this as, kind of the team's last hurrah, maybe he goes out and adds some scoring depth. That's a little bit cheaper than, what a big fish would be. Nobody that really jeopardizes your future. Maybe just like a couple third-round picks, a conditional second, something like that, which, is steep, but, it may, be the difference in a playoff series. I think he might – I think he's going to address defense, just maybe not in the top 6, like the Eric Goodbranson move a couple years ago, where you bring in a guy just to kind of have again, the Predators haven't had, they've spent most of this run playing with 6 defensemen ever since Mark Borowiecki went out. And they've only been calling guys up from Milwaukee on an emergency basis. I think you bring in another guy at least to have some depth. But again, if Poile thinks that changes are coming this summer, you probably don't want to trust, bringing in some new pieces that much, because you're going to have to kind of take a step back and reevaluate where you are.
Yeah. And I think what happens in February into the trade deadline, the moves that Poile does or doesn't make are going to indicate the next maybe 3 to 5 years of the Nashville Predators. And I'm not talking about in 3 to 5 years, the Predators are going to rebuild the entire roster and be competitive again, because I don't believe that's how this works. That's not how any of this works. But I do think that if the Predators get into the playoffs, if they can make it into the second round and look competitive, whether they make it past there or not. I think Poile will stick with the core that he has a little longer. I think that buys some time for Johansson, Duchesne, Forsberg, Juuse, Saros. I think it buys some time. If the Predators crash and burn, like let's talk worst case scenario now, Nick.
All right, let's go.
And as a Optimist, I already am flushing from just the thought of crash and burn. But let's just say the Predators, something happens, they crash and burn, they can't get back on their feet in February, they don't make it into the playoffs. I really think that that's going to signal the end. And I know that we've talked about the fact that like you've got some contracts here that seem immovable. Johansson, Duchesne, these are big contracts. Who's going to take them? Duchesne may have bought himself some grace from last season, but I'm really wondering if there's not going to be a point where Poile says, we're done. And whether that ends up being a deal that a lot of people in Nashville like to kind of change that core could go either way. Obviously Juuse I think is fine. There have been rumors, people kind of speculating about Saros being traded. Y'all just breathe through those. I don't see a scenario, Yaroslav Askarov is not ready. And I don't, Kevin Lankinen's on a 1-year deal. So they're not going to deal Saros at the trade deadline, no matter what Toronto says or offers,
Yeah. I mean, to me, Saros is not somebody you trade unless you look at Yaroslav Askarov and say, that man is ready.
He is done cooking.
And right now, I don't think the Predators are there.
No.
I mean, I don't, unless the Predators just like play a goose egg in February, I don't see them being sellers at the deadline.
I don't either.
Maybe Dante Fabro, like you mentioned earlier, just because it seems like the Predators have been trying to trade that guy for about a year now. I agree. I think whatever David Poile's next move is, whether it's a big swing to kind of refresh the core and maybe bring in, a new person to build around, or, you sell off some of these players, get some cap space, and maybe try to promote the younger guys that you have, sort of maybe not a rebuild, but kind of like the snake shedding its skin and letting the new generation breathe. I think you're going to see that in the offseason. Knowing David Poile, knowing his history, this is a guy that likes to wait until the summer to pull off big moves because there are more teams interested. There's more partners to work with. The teams can kind of take a better look at the salary implications from it. So I think anything like that, you're going to see in the summer instead of right now. What else, Ann? What else are you looking for over the second half of this year? What's a storyline that you're curious to hone in on?
I think the Nashville Predators are going to have to figure out what one word is going to describe their season. Is it going to be inconsistency? Or are they going to get there together? And are they going to be a team that in the second half shows they know how to consistently play good hockey? Because that's been the buzzword around this team, consistency and inconsistency. And they're going to have to settle who they are. They're going to have to decide that. There was a tweet by Chris Mason yesterday. I saw this and I wanted to read these stats. So since December 19th, the Nashville Predators are 15-5-2 record, tied for second best in the West, 3.42 goals per game, third best in the West, 2.68 goals against per game, which is tied for second best in the West. And they lead the NHL. This right here, like it makes me want to get a tattoo. I'm so happy, Nick. They lead the NHL in slot shots per game. The slot is not lava. They have finally heard
They've listened, Ann. Yes. They have listened to you.
Thank you. If they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, I will get a volcano tattoo in their honor. But they need to absolutely decide if that's the team they are and finish out this season, or whether this whole season and this little glimmer of hope we're having in the middle is a waste. But this is going to be a season decided by consistency or inconsistency down this stretch. That's what I'm looking for.
You know what I'm interested in seeing?
What's that?
Does Phil Tomasino make an appearance at the end of the year?
I mean, there you go. There's a question.
And here's the thing, if the Predators they think maybe they have a shot and they need to get some more scoring, do they reach in the reserve? Or the other direction, are they out of it? And do they just want to see what some of these Milwaukee Cats can do? So maybe that's an audition for next year. And not just Phil Tomasino, but maybe some guy like a Luke Evangelista as well.
Yeah. Phil Tomasino not been the top scorer in Milwaukee. I think everybody felt like he was just going to be, blowing it out. He's also dealt with injury. So, he's come back from that and he's doing well. But I don't know that I thought we would be this far into the season without having seen Phil Tomasino.
I didn't think so either. And
I'm a little bit surprised.
I think that is a sore point of contention for a lot of Preds fans right now.
What, the Preds fans are sore? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly. So, I mean, lots of interesting stuff that I think is going to be coming down the pipeline for the second half of the season. And of course, we will be with you every step of the way. And again, we will be back tomorrow to break down a Preds Golden Knights recap because that's really the first step in this whole equation. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at ontheforecheck.com. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan, and be sure to follow the podcast at LO_Predators. And however you're listening to us, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, hit that subscribe button and or the bell notification so you'll always know when we have fresh stuff out for you. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.